NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell calls the lack of diversity among the league's coaches, quote, unacceptable. The statement comes from a lawsuit from a former Miami Dolphins head coach, Brian Flores, which alleges racism within the league. Nate Burleson is following all the details.
I think we're at a fork in the road right now. You know, we're either going to keep it the way it is, or we're going to go in another direction and actually make some real change where we're actually changing the hearts and minds of those who make decisions.
In a memo to NFL teams, Commissioner Roger Goodell responded to Brian Flores' lawsuit, writing, "We have made significant efforts to promote diversity. However, we must acknowledge that particularly with respect to head coaches, the results have been unacceptable." Goodell says the league will reevaluate its diversity and inclusion policies related to race and gender. One of those policies is the Rooney Rule, which requires teams to interview minority candidates for management and coaching positions. Flores and his legal team called Goodell's letter, quote, on the surface, a positive first step, but said it's more of a public relations ploy than a real commitment to change. Goodell also said the league would investigate Flores' allegations that Dolphins owner Stephen Ross offered to pay him to lose games, allegations Ross vehemently denies.
This game, changed my life. So to attack the integrity of the game, that's what I felt was happening in that instance, and I wouldn't stand for it.
All right, we want to bring in Scott Pioli now to talk a little bit more about this. Scott, you were named NFL Executive of the Year 5 times and also part of 3 Super Bowl championships. Let us talk about the Rooney Rule and why it doesn't seem to be working. It was put in place to bring about diversity in the coaching ranks, and it's not happening.
Anne-Marie, first, in order to understand anything, we have to explore the history, right? And the Rooney Rule was created 20 years ago. And I'm sure initially it was well-intentioned, and the people that created it and promoted it wanted change. But let's be honest, this country has a history and a pattern behavior of reacting, enacting, but not enforcing and holding people accountable. And that's what's happened with the Rooney Rule over the last 20 years. We fail to continuously reform these rules. We have laws and policies, but until there's a crisis, we don't do anything about it. I mean, really, if we look at this historically, this is no different than the Voting Rights Act of 1965 and the Federal Housing Act of 1968. These are examples of laws, policies, things that were put in place by this country, primarily by people that look like me, because they say that they want to make a change. But then it becomes to look disingenuous. And do we really want to make change? Because we don't enforce the rules. We don't hold people accountable. And over the last 20 years with the Rooney Rule, there have been infractions. There have been rules that have been circumvented. And we've let people get away with it. So the Rooney Rule, again, in its inception, probably had the right purpose, but we haven't continued to grow the rule and hold people accountable. And just like any other rule or policy that we've done that is race related, we just don't do a good job of holding people accountable and continually updating things.
So, Scott, why do you think that is? Because you raise an excellent point, right? Which is that institutions, countries, organizations put into place rules, measures to try and bring about seismic change, right? They say that they want to see change, and so this is a way to try to ensure that change happens. But then it doesn't happen, and years go by, and now Commissioner Goodell is saying it's unacceptable, but it's like, dude, you've had this rule in place for 20 years. It should have been unacceptable within 3 to 5 years of implementing this rule. If you didn't see a change in the coaching ranks, then someone should have said, hey, maybe we need to go back and either really enforce this, because you can say something on the books, it's quite different in practice. So what do you think went wrong?
Well, Vlad, I think it's just like everything else, right? We say we want to do things, but change is hard. Because what happens when you look like me and you enact change and you really allow change to happen, you start to lose some proximity to power. It starts to affect your bottom line. There's things that happen where, again, people say one thing, but when they realize what the real results might do for them and then possible generations after them, they don't really mean what they say, or it becomes so difficult. I think that's a big part of the truth, Vlad.
Yeah, I mean, that's
a great point.
That's just sort of basic human nature,
Yeah.
almost. You know
Yeah,
what
it's
I mean?
like,
Which you
I'm
can't-
going to do this,
Right,
but I know
yeah.
it's to my detriment.
Right.
And so.
Exactly. And there's good people that are doing bad things because you're right. It's human nature. And what we've got to do to make change is it's just like anything right in this world. We have to fight human instinct and human nature in order for there to be important change in life.
So listen, the Miami Dolphins hired a new coach, Mike McDaniels. He is the fourth minority head coach currently in the NFL. We are hearing that there's a possibility that the Houston Texans may be looking at Brian Flores. Will he be welcomed back into the league, do you think?
Well, the first thing, Emery, I worked with Mike McDaniel in Atlanta, and Mike is biracial. And I'm really hoping that he is going to help impact. I remember having conversations with him in private, him talking about the psychological impact of having a black father and how he would be in certain rooms where because he looks more white, that he heard conversations and heard things that really messed with him psychologically and didn't really know how to deal with. So hopefully he will be a big part of this change. In terms of Brian Flores, it'll be interesting to see if the Texans are serious about this, because let's remember, there have been people in the NFL that have filed suits and lawsuits against the National Football League. Bill Belichick filed a suit against the National Football League when he left the Jets to go to the Patriots. You know, Al Davis, an owner, filed multiple lawsuits against his own league. So to me, it'll be interesting to see. This wouldn't be unprecedented in the sense that someone filing a lawsuit, can still be hired by a club in the National Football League.
That would be good.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the investigation into Flores' allegations of bribery against Miami, the allegations that he's put forth. What are you hearing, Scott?
Well, I haven't heard a lot. I've talked to Brian, but Brian is a personal friend. And to me, I've just talked about, I wanted to find out how he and his family are doing, and the same with the other parties involved. And to me, again, I look at this lawsuit. The only people that know the truth are the principals that are involved.
But could you see,
let
me ask you this, so let me rephrase the question. Could it be possible that what Brian is alleging actually happened? Is it possible in the NFL?
Well, he alleged a lot of things with multiple teams. Could it be possible? I mean, Vlad, anything is possible. I hope it's not true. I mean, because not that I want Brian to be wrong, just because I just hope it's not true, because I love the NFL. I love football. I hope these allegations aren't true. But Brian, I know, is a man of honor and a man of integrity. So something is wrong here. To me, Vlad, what this whole thing underscores is just how broken things are, right? You look at the lawsuit, that the lawsuits, plural, that are there, and what this shows is that the frustration is still there, and people are still frustrated, and this whole thing is still so broken. And until we fix some things, big picture about race, and things like this are going to continue to happen.
Scott Pioli, always great talking to you. Thank you very much.
Anne-Marie, Vlad, thanks so much for having me. Good to be
Scott.
with you.
So for more on Brian Flores, the Super Bowl, and all things sports, just check out our friends at CBS Sports HQ. Like us, you can stream it anytime, anywhere by using the CBS News app and on CBSSports.com.